All right, it's happening. And I'm going to share my screen. Let's hope that this works. So, can you guys, what do you guys see right now? The slide that says Storytelling 101 with my beautiful face? Yeah? Somebody has noise. Let me see. I might have to mute someone. If you are not muted, please mute yourself because I can't find you. Okay, so thank you all so much for coming. You're gonna learn about storytelling today. Fantastic. I have about 30 minutes of content prepared for you guys. Isn't that rad? Let's see. Okay, do you see the what we'll cover slide? Fantastic. Okay, so we're gonna talk about why telling your story will help you build your brand and gain customers, 5 rules of great storytelling, what not to share, how to share your story. We're gonna look at a couple examples of about pages, blogging, and social media, and then we'll open it up to Q&A so you guys can get your specific storytelling questions answered. So I have about 30 minutes of content, and I'm just gonna be like, shwa, shwa, shwa. We're just gonna whip through this, and it might be like a fire hose, I don't know. If we're going through it and you have questions, just like jot it down, especially for the recording. I want it to kind of be like an all one piece. So if you're going back and looking, you can just be like, yeah. And then afterwards, if you have specific questions about the stuff I covered, we'll go back to it. Yeah, it's gonna be good. Let's dive in. Okay, so why stories will help you build your brand. So our stories, hold on a second. Technology, 1 second. Okay, so our brains are biologically hardwired to engage with stories. We've been sharing stories since ancient times. And when we engage with well-crafted stories, our brains respond by releasing the chemical oxytocin, which signals that it's safe for us to trust others. Yeah, there's like chemicals going on. It's crazy. So researchers have found that character-driven stories in particular are very effective at getting our brains to release oxytocin. So when we encounter a great story like this, we're actually more likely to take actions that the story suggests, even actions like purchasing a product, donating money, or changing our behaviors. So it's really wild stuff. They were actually, showed people videos, measured the oxytocin in their blood, and then asked them afterwards if they wanted to donate money to something. Like, y'all, science is crazy. Stories are crazy. How about that? So yeah, why tell your story? Because cold, hard facts aren't enough. You can give people really impressive numbers and show them spreadsheets all day, but our brains just aren't wired for that. We really need storytelling. We need more, to make those facts and figures meaningful. So this great research has actually found that decision-making isn't logical. It's based on emotions. You may already know this or heard about this, but it's true. So, customers, they're not buying from you because you gave them all the right facts and figures, you reason them into it. Customers buy from you because you've led them to the solution that feels best for them. So, you've shown them that you get them, you understand their pain points and their desired results, and you've helped them see how your product or service is the solution that they need. So it's really more of it's not a let me bang you over the head with these, big numbers and facts and reasons. It's more about guiding them to that conclusion on their own. So your goal with, sharing your story is to show your ideal customers that you're their perfect match. You're trying to attract these customers that you love to work with and that are going to love to work with you. Sharing your story gives you gives them the basic context for who you are and that you've got a legit business going on, you're a real person, and you're not a robot. So that might be hard to prove. But sharing your story can do so much more than just that. This is your opportunity to show your values and create that emotional connection with your audience. What are you made of? What is going to attract your customers to you? What awesome results will you get them? So your story is your opportunity to demonstrate that you're trustworthy, experienced, relatable, and care about your clients. You deliver a great product or service. They're going to love working with you. And maybe your story is inspiring in some way, or that you have a social mission that they're going to want to support. So here you are, you're telling engaging narratives, you're unleashing all this oxytocin into your customers' brains, you're building their trust, and you're getting a competitive edge. This is the whole point, right? Seeing your business have greater success, getting to help more people, reach more people. So as marketing guru Seth Godin says, marketing is no longer about the stuff that you make, but about the stories you tell. So your story is going to be what differentiates you from your competition and gives you value. It's establishing connection and trust with your ideal clients. And this approach is tried and true. There's a long list of brands that have used storytelling to have massive success. Just think of anything from Apple, like Steve Jobs using storytelling and, introducing the new products, or the, I'm a Mac, I'm a PC commercials. Anyways, I've got a whole list, Southwest Airlines, Warby Parker, Airbnb, influencers like, Seth Godin here, Malcolm Gladwell. All these cool people have taken the power of storytelling, discovered that magic and used it to have really amazing success in what they're doing. So I'm going to take a breath. Oh my God, I'm going through this before we talk about 5 rules of great storytelling. And yeah, hopefully by now you're like, storytelling, this makes a lot of sense. I want to use this for my own business. I hope you do. So first rule. And what does rule mean anyways? These are really guidelines. These are going to help you to be a great writer and great storyteller. This is stuff I really want to share with you because I think it's important. So be connected to time, place, and people. Basically, without any context, your story can be confusing and lose impact or credibility. Don't be a floating head, as I like to say. It's not necessary. This is kind of what makes a story, right? This is someone is doing something somewhere, as time rolls by. I see this issue a lot where my clients are trying to communicate something important, but they forget to provide their audience with any context. So anchoring your story in time, place, and characters can make a really big difference between writing something that feels, relatable and relevant, and something that's just going to feel disconnected or like it's just kind of your personal inner musings. A few simple words can really change the impact of a sentence. Like in this example, when we see 2008, we automatically know that was the Great Recession, so just like saying, oh, the 70s or the 90s, that evokes certain connotations, adding in the year or the time frame, and not only orients us within the story, but, it orients us in time in general. It can be a really efficient way to communicate a lot of meaning. Adding in place, if it has significance for the story, that can be really helpful. This gives your clients context for where you're at in the world, where you've been. And if you're mentioning different places throughout your story, it's really helpful to have a transition line like this, so your clients are able to stay in the flow of the story and not be distracted and be like, wait, what? When did that happen? When did they go there? Place is always helpful. You can also, so yeah, those first two examples are maybe, maybe at home and like somebody's bigger, capital S story. This is the story of my business. This third one, you can also orient your audience in your everyday posts, like on your blog or social media. This is a great way to introduce an idea that you want to share. Tell us what you were doing or who you were with when it came to you. I found that wrapping an idea in a story can be a lot more interesting than if you start randomly pontificating on a subject. This is what I think about. Oh, have you ever thought about this? It can be really helpful to just kind of anchor this in reality for people. And last one, this is just another example of wrapping something bigger in a story. This could be a company providing context for why they chose to create their product or service. They're explaining that they didn't just come up with their service out of nowhere. It was during a certain period of time that they found out from real people that this is, what their customers needed or wanted. So be descriptive. Activate your clients' senses, transport them into the scene. Again, this goes back to the whole, brain chemistry stuff we were just talking about. You can actually, I didn't put this in here, but there's like a study at, I think it was Princeton, where they had someone tell a story to someone else, and they called it like brain coupling is what happened, where their brain patterns started to match. And so the person who's listening to the story, their brain starts to experience the things that the teller was experiencing, even though that listener has never, that story, they weren't physically there. They never had those experiences, but just because they're being told the story, their brain patterns start matching the other person. So storytelling is really powerful. So help to transport that person into your story and where you're at. This is also just a general tenet of good writing. So my advice for you, use vibrant verbs that are specific, descriptive, and show the action in an interesting way. Use adjectives that bring the picture into clear focus. The thing with adjectives is that if you use too many of them, you're going to really weigh your writing down. So I guess imagine if you're literally painting a picture, painting. If you use every single color of paint on top of each other, you're just going to get mud. It's actually not a good thing. But the color there, happy little tree there, happy little tree there, like it's a beautiful thing. So, use choice adjectives to make important details stand out. You don't need to use all the adjectives or use them just to use them, but use ones that are going to be helpful. And I think someone put something in the chat, and I don't know how to use technology. Ooh, let's see. Oh, thanks. Happy little trees. So happy. Okay, fantastic. Next rule. Let's get back in here. Be human. Don't be afraid to share emotions, share the struggle, and share what you're passionate about. You guys might be familiar with Joseph Campbell's work on the hero's journey. Yay, Star Wars, yay, Lord of the Rings. People always cite those as like really, pop cultural references that illustrate that pretty well. Basically, to become a hero or a successful business owner, it takes a lot of hard work and ups and downs to get there. So, if you think of your favorite movie, even if it has a happy ending, there's a lot of tension and struggle that the characters go through to get there. And it's that tension in their journey that makes a story interesting and causes you to connect with the characters. So here are some examples. So as it turns out, when you share your struggles and mistakes, people tend to connect with that, and they perceive you as more trustworthy than if you spent the whole time just listing all your amazing accomplishments. So I think sometimes we want to just be like, I'm awesome, all the time. But I think usually there's a little bit more to the story, and it turns out people actually respond better when they hear more of the real story. So, you should always be presenting your brand in a positive light. Your goal in sharing your story is not to just tell them that you're perfect in every way. Remember, your goal through sharing your real story is to, you know, build trust, show your values, show what you're made of, show them that you're going to be awesome to work with. Maybe you get what they're going through, you get their experiences, you understand them, you can really help them. So great storytelling. Be human. Next. Number 4, be organized. Any story you tell should have a clear beginning, middle, and end. And I'm going to say, I have kind of a caveat here. So for the most part, you want to stay in chronological order. Things can get really confusing for your readers if you're like jumping around in time all the time and they're like, wait, what? They don't have a clear picture of what you're actually talking about. But I will say this, occasionally, depending on what you're writing, you might want to begin with the middle or the climax of your story, like something that's really intense or exciting that happened to hook your readers in. But then you're going to go back and start from the beginning and lead us up to where you originally started. So that's the thing. Even times like that, and you're probably going to do this in like blogging. This can work really well if you're writing a blog, or if you're doing like public speaking, you know, you're delivering to a group and you want to hook them in immediately. That technique can work really well. But even when you do that, your story still has a clear beginning, middle, and an end, you know, so you want to have that really clear for yourself, even if you mix up the order a little bit when you're telling it. Yeah, so for the most part, okay, so many points, but yeah, so for the most part, your about page and anecdotes are going to be in order. So yeah, so on this slide, I'm going to show you like an example of about pages. The next slide will be anecdotes, just kind of how this plays out, right? This beginning, middle, and an end. So in the beginning, it's like, well, what sets you on your path to, you know, becoming a business owner, you know, and you might not mention anything about your business at first. It's kind of your journey up until the middle, which is your turning point. So that is whatever led you to where you are today. And for a lot of people, that's, well, yeah, usually something significant happened. You know, maybe you were sick of your old job and you discovered this new thing that you could do and discovered that you loved it. Or maybe you got really sick and you're like, oh my God, something in my life has got to change. You know, maybe you had some kind of epiphany. Maybe you moved to a new location and had to change your life. So there's a lot of things that could be your turning point. And then, of course, your end is then your arrival at where you are today, your wonderful business and everything that you do. So I guess I'll just read through this one really quickly. So here's just an example, kind of, I've sketched out the outline of like, if you're a weight loss coach, you know, what your about page could be like, or what the story part of your about page could be like. So it starts out, you know, I started dieting at age 12, struggle with my weight and self-esteem throughout college and having kids. Then we get to the turning point. Then in my late 40s, I reached my oh shit weight, and I knew enough was enough. I needed a radical change that wasn't a new diet. I did XYZ. It worked. My life totally changed. Then guide us to the end. Then I decided to become a weight loss coach so I could help other women transform their lives in relationship to food. Today, I get to work with amazing women to achieve ABC goals. So that's just kind of a rough outline of how that looks for a lot of like one-on-one service providers. Next slide. Okay, so an anecdote on your blog or social media. So this is like, I'm telling you, like, this is storytelling, beginning, middle, and end. You can use this anywhere in any situation. So, you know, in a more general sense, you know, the beginning is kind of setting that context. Why is this important? Where did this come from? The middle is that problem, question, epiphany, or experience that's a turning point. The end is that resulting action or conclusion. Bonus points if you pair it with a call to action for your audience. So say you're a yoga teacher, and I would like to personally apologize to all the yoga teachers here that I am like besmirching your profession. But anyways, Beginning, last week I was chatting with the students, my Thursday morning yoga class, orienting us to time and space, or, wrapping this thing in a story. Chatting with my students when it hit me. All of us had X challenge, which was really surprising. So I got curious and I started experimenting. Then you guide us to your conclusion in the end. What I learned was that a little QRS can bring ABC results. This is so simple, yet none of us are doing it. Starting next week, I'm hosting a QRS challenge on Facebook so we can all get ABC results. Click the button below to join me. I'm sorry, yoga teachers. But this is an example of how anybody can do this, telling a story, kind of guiding us through the process of how you came to, this is an important thing, and then inviting your audience to engage with you in that thing, whether that's through a challenge or, email me or post a comment if you also have this question, post a comment if you're interested, asking them in some way to engage. Okay, and our final rule that we'll talk about today is be honest. Own your story and don't try to make it something that it's not. People want to get a sense of who you are and how you got into the business before they choose to work with you. And people can smell bullshit. So authenticity trumps drama every time. And yeah, sometimes entrepreneurs have pretty dramatic stories. Like I've had clients who literally had a near-death experience, and that's how they got into the work they do. So, if your story is naturally exciting, I encourage you to share some of those details if you feel comfortable, because tension makes for a really exciting read. But the truth is that most of us have, interesting but much more ordinary stories of how we came into our business, and that's really okay. My business story isn't that crazy. But people who've read my About page tell me that, they really relate to my struggles with writing. And by the end of the story, they feel encouraged to write more, which is great. So yeah, don't worry about having an inspiring or epic story. Your goal is to show your audience what you're made of and why they should work with you. So the same principle, be honest, tell the truth, goes for any kind of anecdote that you're sharing. You don't have to make it really crazy. Okay, yeah, we'll do this pretty quickly. Don't share details that aren't relevant for your clients. So here are some examples, like this first one, it's important to remember that you're not sharing your life story. Occasionally, like a very small percentage of people, their story might actually start at their birth, but for most people, it's going to start much later on when the action really starts. The second one, don't get in the weeds. I feel like we tend to have one of two challenges. Either we don't share enough descriptive details, and like, tell me more, what actually happened. We're super vague. Or we share way too many details and they are unnecessary details that bog down the narrative. So this is something to watch out for. Are you getting into too many back and forth, this happened. Can you simplify that? Can you streamline that? Does your client need to know every single little twist and turn? This last one, I'm a genius at making salads. That's a true story. I am a genius personally at making salads. I found this out in college. I thought I hated salad ever since childhood. Turns out I just hated the salad my family made. So this has nothing to do with my career as a writer. And I'm not even going to use this as a fun fact because it doesn't do anything to support my brand or build trust or connect with my clients. I mean, maybe you think it's funny. It's true. Actually, I am a genius. But yeah, it's not really beneficial, so it's not relevant. I'm not going to use it. Ultra personal details that you're not comfortable with sharing. This may sound self-explanatory, but let's talk about it a little bit more. So this is usually stuff that's in the realm of money, sex, death, relationships. Like maybe you had a falling out with your old company, or you experienced a personal tragedy like illness, death of a loved one, you had a messy divorce or a breakup. here's the thing, details like this, if they're relevant, can actually make your story really powerful. You know, they're real, they're relatable, they're showing your struggle. But it's not going to feel good to share that if you're still processing those events or you're just not comfortable sharing them with strangers. So I always ask people, like, you know, if you have some ultra personal details that you're kind of on the fence about sharing, you're like, oh, this makes sense to be in my story, but it's kind of intense. Here's what I would ask you. Does it pass the coffee date test? So basically, imagine you were sitting down to have coffee with a client for the first time. You know, they're a stranger. They seem like they could, you know, be a potential client, but you've never met them before. Would this like ultra personal information, would that come up in your coffee date? You know, would it naturally come up in conversation? So yeah, if the answer is yes, then yeah, maybe it's okay to share. And that's the thing, like sharing these intense experiences can be really powerful. It can feel liberating, honestly, to speak up, to own your story, and to share what you've been through with others. And maybe, you know, your clients might be going through similar things that you went through, and that's, you know, super relatable. But, you know, if you don't feel comfortable sharing it, don't do it. Like, you don't need to sacrifice your privacy or safety on the altar of being vulnerable. Being vulnerable, it's a catchphrase, y'all. And, you know, really, I just encourage you to do what feels right for you. Because that's the thing. If it does feel essential to your story, you can be intentional about what you share. So, you know, my personal example, last year I got divorced. That wasn't great. And that was a huge catalyst for me to take stock and figure out what I really want out of life. You know, this was really significant for my business and for my personal writing practice. So yeah, if you look at my about page, you'll see I do mention my divorce, but I don't mention all the gory details. You know, I'm like, this is a thing, this was significant, this is part of the story. But oh my God, the sun. You don't need all the gory details to understand that as part of my story. So last thing, what not to share. Details that could be seen as libel or slander. So if it could cause a lawsuit, it's probably not worth sharing, you know, especially because your story is about you. You know, you don't have to talk down about others to show how you're different, and what you're providing is fantastic. You know, so if you have something bad to say about someone, either don't say it or say it vaguely. This is one of the only times I'm going to tell you, like, yeah, be vague. But yeah, say it vaguely, and in a way that focuses more on the good stuff that you're doing rather than the bad stuff that they're doing. So yeah, so in these examples, you can see, like, things were going great until I caught my asshole of a partner embezzling. Well, you know, maybe tone that down a bit. You know, we had a disagreement. We decided to close down the business. Yeah, number 3, I was sick of being scammed by greeting companies. You know, you maybe don't call people out by name. Maybe that is true, but, you know, instead you could talk about, you know, the old way of doing things, you know, wasn't great. I'm going to do this. I'm going to create this new product that's awesome over here. Well, let me tell you about it. So, it's 10:33. I want you to have time for questions. I'm going to do this last section as fast as I can. Maybe not as fast as I can. We're just going to do this. Okay, your website's about page. This is obviously the most basic and important place for you to share your business's story. Remember, this is your story as it relates to your clients. Like we talked about a moment ago, this is not your life story. So, you know, details that are not relevant to your clients should not be included. Oh yeah, so basic structure of your website. So first you're going to talk about your ideal client's pain points and desires, and then briefly describe what you do. If your business sells products and you're a larger enterprise, or you're not a one-on-one service provider, These two sections might be kind of squished into one. Like this is more like your mission statement. You're still achieving the same things. You're saying like, this is who I help and this is what I do, but it might look a little bit different. And we'll actually look at examples of this in a second. Tell your story with a beginning, middle, and an end. If you have a larger company that's been around a while, like you might want to break this up visually into a timeline. There's cool stuff you can do. Describe what you're doing today, what awesome stuff do you have going on, who are you helping, and always end with a call to action. So, encourage them to email you, sign up for a newsletter, check out your products, whatever it is. And we're going to go see this in the wild. Oh no, technology. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. And I'm going to start sharing my screen again, but we're going to look at, here we go. Okay, can everybody see a web page that says work with me? Yes, okay. So, but that's not even what we want to look at. Okay, so this is my website. I'm gonna show you really quick. Okay, so I'm gonna show you, this is an example. I'm a one-on-one service provider. Here's what an about page could look like. So I start by talking about my ideal clients, and I'm like, hey, smart and driven, you want to write more, feels like writing's always on your to-do list, but never getting done. So I'm introducing myself, I help people connect with their creativity and up-level their writing skills, this is how I help them. Then I launch into my story, and here we've got the beginning. This is how I became a writer. This is when I found out how fun being a writer is. Wow, it's crazy. And then here's the middle. Here's my turning point. I moved to California and I had to face a decision. Am I going to get a 9-to-5 or am I going to grow my business? I choose to grow my business. Fantastic. No regrets. And then a couple years later, I see, this new gig for being a writing coach through this business program, which is how I know several of you here. And it was fantastic. And I was like, wow, I love this. And now here is kind of the today section where I'm like, I am doing this, more and more now. I love it. It's great. Being a writing coach is awesome. I have a couple more thoughts about writing and why it's great. And then at the end, I have my call to action. I'd love to help you tell your story. And if you click on that, it goes to my Work With Me page. Fantastic. I also want to show you MailChimp because I'm not sure what everyone who's on the call does, but maybe some of you, your businesses are a little different from mine. So MailChimp, I think, is a good example of, so this first paragraph here, it's accomplishing the same things as I'm accomplishing in my beginning section, but it just looks a little bit different. So they're saying, this is who we are. We're an always-on marketing platform. This is who we help. Small businesses. This is what we do. We make beautiful, innovative products. These are the results that we help our customers to get. So then they have their founder story, which has a beginning, middle, and end. This is how the company came into existence. Yay, a call to action. And then, because remember that your about page is all about sharing your values. So then they have a culture section and a corporate citizenship section. So depending on what your business does, you might break it up like this. Like you might have a shorter, hero's journey. My hero's journey, as a one-on-one service provider, it's pretty long. But maybe depending on what you do, that story might be a little bit shorter. And then you might take that opportunity to highlight other important things that you're doing. So then I want to look at 2 blog posts. So this is Rami Sethi. He is an influencer. He writes a lot about personal finance, about starting your own business. This guy is a great writer. I really enjoy him. And so here's a blog post where he's using that technique of wrapping an idea in a story. So, of course, he has a great headline, here's a simple way to get 50,000 people to your blog in one day. So he's introducing this technique, and we're like, oh my God, what is this? So basically he's telling the story of this guy, Carl, who did a guest post. And this guest post snowballed into really crazy, awesome stuff. For me, he didn't have to tell the story. You know, he could have been like, oh, here are your 3 steps to getting lots of views. Number 1, create something useful and original. Number 2, instead of grand promises, show what you already did. And so he's communicating that information, but he's communicating it in the context of this guy, Carl Richards. You know, this is real life, this person, this is what happened to him. He's telling it in an engaging way. So, call to action. So take notes. This is a great way to communicate ideas. And then this is my friend, Courtney Potter, who is an amazing artist and photographer. She did the photos for my website. And so this blog post is announcing that she has a new studio space. She could have just said, hey, y'all, I have a new studio space. Come see me. But it was actually really meaningful for her. So she tells us a story. She uses this blog post to walk us through, to basically get us like as invested in it as she is. I mean, not literally, but it's pretty moving. You know, she talks about when she started painting, she was in an abusive marriage, and, you know, she was only allowed to paint at the kitchen table. You know, she had no space. You know, so that's the beginning of her story, right? She's in this bad situation. She really wants to be creative, but she can't. And then we get to the turning point. She says yes to herself, and she's like, I'm going to take up some space. And then we see she has great photos. We see her journey of expansion. You know, she's painting on the mountainside. She's moving into her own place. She has a studio, but not a real studio. She has like a space, a corner in her house that she can paint. And that's so meaningful. And then finally we get to the point of today where she gets the keys to her new studio. And by the time you read through, she's sharing this story. This is not her business story with, you know, big capital S, but this is a specific story about why having the studio space is really meaningful for her. So again, example of in a blog post, at the end, she's like, I'm not just surviving, I'm thriving, and this is fantastic. You know, she's got this awesome space. And her call to action at the end, want to take up space with me? You know, come visit me in my new place. And so by the end of that, it's like, oh my God, of course I want to come hang out with you, see this space, and you're an awesome person. I've, you know, gotten to sharing your story. Okay, so I'm going to show you one more thing, and that is using your story on social media. And then we're going to open it up for Q&A. All right. Sharing the desktop. Okay, do you guys see a slide that says your blog? Fantastic. All right, social media, here we go. So this is a post on Instagram. My friend Stephanie Hayes, who some of you know, who is a brilliant business coach, and she writes killer Instagram posts. I think social media is the perfect place for storytelling. There are a lot of different ways that this can look, but I'm quickly going to show 2 examples. So we see here Stephanie, she hooks us in immediately. Did I ever tell you about that time I lost it all? So that sounds pretty juicy, you know, and then she goes on to tell us this full story. Again, it's not her capital S business story, but it is a story of this thing that happened. You know, it's got this beginning, middle, and an end. She tells a complete story. It's got great details. It's got action and emotion. This is all in an Instagram post. By the end of it, she's totally convinced me that you need a plan for your business. She's got a great call to action at the end. She is inviting us to join her for her program that's all about business planning. So yeah, this is a great example of using storytelling to show your experience and your personality and to get your audience to buy into an idea that you are also providing a solution for. So one last one, Crystal K. So this is a former client of mine, Crystal. I used to write for her, and she recently launched her own fashion line through Kickstarter, and she's been posting on Instagram about, this whole process. And, this is a really simple post that shows how you can elevate the impact and meaningfulness of a post by including a narrative. She could have just said, hooray, the final packages of my product are shipped, but, she's choosing to communicate the journey, the hard work, and the dedication that it took to create this product for her friends. So super simple. You don't even need to tell, this like crazy long story. It's just like, how can you bring those pieces in? So how will you share your story? Thanks so much for hanging with me, guys. I'm going to open the floor to Q&A. Longer than I wanted to. I'm sorry. But anyway, so this meeting it'll officially end at the top of the hour, but I'm very happy to stay around for, longer than that if people have more questions. But yeah, so what questions do you have about sharing your story or using storytelling in your business? I would love to hear. Cool. So I stopped screen sharing. Can you see my face? Can everyone just see my face? Fantastic. Cool. Cool. Who has a question? Does anyone have, I have questions for you if you don't have questions for me, but I'm here. I'm ready. Oh, Pia, are you saying I cannot hear you? Oh, there's no volume. You're not muted. Oh, crap. Do you want to type? Yeah, I could mute you and unmute you, but you are not muted right now.
Joanna, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Wendy.
Hey, so there's a couple questions in the chat box if you want to take a look in there.
Thank you, Wendy.
You're welcome.
Organized. Oh, so I see a question from Q. You mentioned using emotion, but is there a context when emotion should be limited or used in scale? For example, some job interview strategists say, don't be emotional. Thoughts? Thank you for this compelling question, Q. I think a lot of this depends on the context. It depends on your business and your audience. It's kind of like, I think of it kind of like dress code. So if you work in an office where you would be wearing a tie and a suit, the way that you are going to write in communication is going to be different than if you work in an office where you wear a hoodie and ripped jeans. So a lot of it's about the context. I know a lot of coaches that do really squishy stuff. And I've worked with psychics and healers and, people that are very heart-centered, and a lot of times part of their brand, it's very emotions driven. It's very connected to emotions, and they're not going to shy away from, being, I'm not going to say over the top, but kind of like fully expressing that and being open about that. I think that if your business is a little more buttoned up, emotion absolutely still belongs in what you're writing, but how you're going to convey it may be a bit different. It may be, punchy and to the point, maybe a little more reined in. It should never feel like it's over the top, but it should still feel like it's going to get, it doesn't matter if you have a, business, a B2B business, you're selling to other businesses, those are still humans that are making that decision to purchase. And so you are still appealing to their emotions. Maybe you are using more facts and figures and hard data, but you're still going to wrap that in a story. Hopefully that answers some of your question. I'm not sure. I do not see your face. So let me know if you have other questions beyond that. Oh, awesome. Okay. Let's see. Any other sites? Okay, Pia says, awesome sites. The visual displays at a level of the storytelling too. Yes, they do. I've started using subtitles too. Do you have any other suggestions for blogs? Oh, subtitles. Do you mean like subheaders, like to break up the text? Yeah, okay, fantastic. Yes, I'm a huge fan. We're writing things for people to read on the web, either on their computer or on mobile. This is very different from reading something that is in a book. So a lot of you, maybe already know this, but so always be cognizant of the format that you're writing for. So if you're writing for web, paragraphs should be 1 to 3 sentences max. We do not want huge chunks of text that are just going to be like overwhelming and hard to read and cause your readers to zone out. Subtitles, as Pia mentioned, or subheaders, whatever you want to call them, are really fantastic. That's a bigger line, either different text or size or format, that's helping to guide you through, helping to guide your readers through the story or the ideas you're conveying. But yeah, other suggestions for blogs. Formatting wise, like I'm not a designer, but pictures, colors, things, again, it's kind of like using adjectives where you want to enhance what you're writing. So don't do a bunch of crazy formatting if it's going to distract people from what you want them to do. Everything should be kind of like a funnel that's guiding people into taking the actions, getting the information, and then taking the actions that you want them to do. But yeah, blogs, have a great title. Like having a great title is so crucial. That's like number one, because you want people to click. Like, how are they going to read your awesome content if you have a boring title? So great titles are usually so great titles can be like specific, like they're telling you exactly what you're going to get. And it's like, oh my God, I want that thing. I must have it. They're kind of exciting. Or they might be a little bit mysterious, like, and intriguing. But even if they're intriguing, it's like, oh, it's still something that I want to know about. Vagueness is just like the worst thing you could possibly ever do. Don't be vague. But yeah, so great title is essential for a blog post. A great intro is essential for a blog post. Again, it's kind of like, rules of great storytelling, like give us some context. Like, why should we care about this? Like, hook us in from the very first and tell us why you're sharing this. Yeah, I don't know. It can be dicey. You've got to be a really good writer if you want to just like immediately jump into the action. Pia says, what do you use to create a great title? Right now I'm blogging about strengths themes that are copyrighted. Ooh, so I'm using a straightforward title. Makes sense. You don't want to get sued. That's like number one, right? But I would say make sure that, is there a way that you can describe it that's not exactly the copyrighted title? It's using slightly different words that are intriguing to your clients. I don't know. I don't think I can give super awesome advice without seeing some examples. But let's see what other questions we have too. So Catherine says, how do you suggest communicating with clients in writing in a friendly and open way without being subject to the tyranny of the exclamation point? Oh my God, I love it. Exclamation points. These are best used in moderation. You are correct, Catherine. I think a lot of this has to do with the tone. Just what you're saying, in a friendly and open way. Well, what what words are you choosing to use? I think if you want to avoid exclamation points, I think exclamation points are like kind of a crutch. Like, oh, I'll definitely use them here and there. Like, oh, I'm guilty. But I mean, they're fine. But like, it is kind of a crutch of like, oh, I'll just write a normal, boring sentence and then put that at the end of it. So you get excited, you know? I think a lot of it is about what words are you choosing to use? You know, are you using friendly and open words? Are you bringing more personality into your writing? Are you saying something that's a little bit, are you saying it in a more unusual way instead of the typical boring cookie cutter way? So, right, it's kind of the difference between having a cookie cutter email versus infusing something with your personal voice and personality. Bye, Pia. I'll see you later. Thanks so much for joining. Catherine, do you have any more? Let me know if you have any more questions about that, and we can also talk later. Oh, Marissa, overuse. Cool. Are there any other questions from anybody? No? I have a question for you guys. So you all showed up, so I assume that you are interested in sharing your story and using storytelling in your business. What else are you interested in? I'm thinking of doing more events. So I'd love to hear from you. Like, what kinds of topics would you love to hear about? Would you love, expert feedback on? So Sandy says, vlogging. Ew. Very interesting. That's a good topic, which I'm probably going to start myself. Lindsay says, how to hone my voice. Oh, this is one of my favorite topics. Fantastic. Mindset, being vulnerable in public. Oh my God. Yeah. So, okay, I need to stop myself from talking about that. Sorry, Marissa. Mindset stuff is so huge with writing. Oh God, there's so many ways that connects to. Okay, Tammy, how to create an ongoing writing practice to support continually telling your story. Oh, Tammy, I have a package for this. Anyways, yeah, I have a lot to say about that. From Q, how much self-culture to add to your brand, such as how much Latino is too much Latino in my personal brand? How do I gauge that? I don't know. Oh, that's such an excellent question. Oh, bye, Jackie. Yeah, something like that. How much self-culture, I think that so much of that depends on your audience. Like, yes, it depends on you. But again, this whole idea of telling your story in your business, so much of it is, how your story as it relates to your client. So that's a really excellent question. Wendy says, how to create engaging writing for social media posts. For example, limited characters and attention span by viewers. That's a really good one. Yeah, so how can we say a lot while, saying a little? Say a lot with just a few words. Yeah, engaging. That's a great one. Thanks, Tammy. I'll see you later. Cool. So let's hear that. But yeah, thank you guys so much. Enough the Mario photos. Wendy, so many good things. Cool. Thank you guys so much for coming. So I'm going to either later today or tomorrow, I'll send you the recording of this so you can go back and look at this stuff whenever you want at your own leisure. I also invite you, if you want to do a free session with me, I'll send you a link to my scheduler. Maybe you have some additional questions or you want to talk with me like, what would working together look like? Come talk to me, So you're going to get an email in your inbox that has your recording and the opportunity for a free mini session. Yeah, it's 10:58. Any other questions or comments from anyone? Oh, thanks, Lindsay. Yeah, It's really, really fantastic to be with you guys. This was really, really fun. Even though I was like, oh God, what do I do? This was really, really fun. Great to see your awesome faces. And I hope that this is helpful and you start to use this stuff, you know, right away as much as you can. Cool. All right, you guys. Absolutely. My pleasure. Cool. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, and I will see you later. Bye. Bye.